Hi, Morgan with Event Answer here to show you how to make this North Pole sign for your front porch or next holiday party. Check out the description box below for printable directions as well as supply lists of everything that you'll need to make your own North Pole sign. Let's jump right into it. So first of all, you're going to need some spray paint that's meant for foam, dollar store ball about 4 inches wide, and a skewer. Now I'm putting the skewer into the bottom, and that's going to allow us to spray paint it without getting fingerprints all over the ball. I also have a piece of pink insulation foam here, and that's what we'll stick this into for it to dry. Make sure you got your spray paint all shaken up. Put a nice light coat on it. You don't want drips to form. I did 2 coats of primer before moving on to the gold spray paint. Get that all covered and then set it in the foam and put it aside to dry. Here I have the 2-inch PVC pipe, and I am measuring it to 5 feet. If you don't have a saw like I do here, you can use a pipe cutter on this or a hand saw. The miter saw just makes quick work of this. The main thing is you want to make sure you get square ends on your piece. That way it doesn't wobble when you put it on the stand, and when we put the ball on top, it sits nice and flush. So get that cut and set it aside for later. So now I'm taking some acetone. This is 100% acetone nail polish remover and some shop towels. What we're doing is removing all the ink off of the PVC pipe. You want to be really generous here with the acetone. I found that if I started rubbing it and it started to dry on me, instead of rubbing off the ink, I was just smearing it around and leaving purple all over the place. So keep reapplying the acetone and keep it nice and wet, and that way it rubs off. See there, you can see the purple. It's not coming off very well. So keep it nice and damp and rub thoroughly. You gotta scrub out it a little bit. Originally I thought I would just be able to remove the ink and it would be all white. Turns out that wasn't the case. I wasn't able to get all the purple off, so I ended up having to go back, which we'll see in a moment here. I had to go back and rough up the entire pipe because I'm going to have to spray paint this later. You can do this with more acetone and just go over the entire surface of the PVC pipe to make it rough and accept the spray paint, or you can also go over it with a high grit steel wool. That would also work, but just make sure you cover the entire pipe. If you miss places, the paint might not stick very well. Spray paint doesn't like PVC that's not been treated. It tends to flake off. So now we're ready to spray paint the pipe. You want to take a shop towel, tack cloth or something to get all of the dust and the leftover PVC shavings. I found that there was a lot of static electricity on the PVC pipes. So make sure you go over that and remove everything before you start spray painting that. Once again, I'm using the same Rust-Oleum paint and primer in white that was meant for plastics, and this stuck really well onto the PVC pipe. So take it in nice light sprays. Try to not get any runs in it. The runs can affect the final look. I did find that I had to go back and do a second coat over the places that had a lot of dark purple on them. But then just set those aside to dry. Now that our balls are dry, I'm coming back with the gold spray paint and doing just what we did earlier. Doing a nice even layer, taking it nice and slow. This is also Rust-Oleum, one of their metallic paints. I found it covered really nicely and didn't flake off of the primer in any way. I did end up spray painting the bottom, even though where the skewer is, that's not going to be seen. That part will be glued to the pipe. But it's nice to cover all of it so you don't miss anything and affect how you have to add those later. So now that the paints are drying on the other things and this PVC is dry, I'm taking red duct tape. You could use colored masking tape or anything that you'd like, but I just found some red duct tape. It was really easy to add the swirl to give it that candy cane look. Give yourself a little bit of a tail on the end of the pipe, and then pull the tape nice and taut and slowly work your way down. The important thing here is to keep a consistent angle. I found that if I got too hasty, I'd have to back up a little bit because my angle was getting off. So keep that angle that the tape is to the pipe very consistent and make sure it's always taut. You can see me rubbing it as I'm putting it on. That's to keep air bubbles and wrinkles from forming. I did have to go back a little bit and do a final rub down, but just make sure you're getting a good adhesion here and being consistent all the way down. Now as we get to the end here, I've got a utility knife, but you can also use a pair of scissors. Just leave yourself a nice tail of tape over the edge, and we're going to fold that over. So you want to make sure you've got enough to go all the way over the end, and don't cut yourself short here. Because one edge is going to be seen, we will be gluing the ball straight to this. You want to make sure that you get a nice good adhesion there and it's really flat. You take your end, push it over really tightly and rub it down. You don't have to worry so much about the inside, that's not going to be seen. The main thing is getting a nice crisp fold over that cut edge and make sure it's got some good adhesion, because we'll also be gluing one of these ends. Then I gave it one more look over and rubbed all the air bubbles out. If there was any wrinkles, tried to rub those out a little bit and made sure the tape was nice and stuck down. Okay, so here I'm cutting the sign for the North Pole sign. This is 1/2 inch MDF, and I'm just running it through the table saw and ripping it down to a 6-inch width. I made 6 of these, so I was able to get all 6 signs out of this 2x4 handy panel. But if you're just doing one of these, you could use a 1x6 board or scrap MDF, but it was nice to use the whole panel. So just rip that down to 6 inches, and then we're going to take it over back to the miter saw and cut that down to 18 inches. I made multiple, so I put a stop block on the end so I could do multiple cuts really easily without having to remeasure every time. So if you're doing this for a special event, you're making lots of these, utilize a stop block to make your job a lot easier. So once you've got it all cut, make sure you wipe all the dust and dirt off. Don't tip the paint off the edge of the table. And then I'm using just some standard latex primer here. You can also do spray paint. That would work just fine on the MDF. This was what I had, and that's what I went with. On here I did 2 coats on the front and the back and all of the edges. And make sure you get those edges really well. The MDF absorbs the paint quite a bit. I did go back and do 2 coats of paint to get a nice even color. But like I said, you can use spray paint on this, no problem. I have some clear silicone here, and that's how I'm adhering the gold ball to the PVC pipe. You can be really generous with it. I went around it twice and give it a nice cushion. Make sure this is clear. It comes in lots of colors, white, gray, things like that. Make sure you get the clear one so it's not visible once it dries. And I'm being very generous here. I'm grabbing the 4-inch ball. The paint is dry on that now, and then I'm just lining it up with that center seam that's going around. But you do want to make sure that wherever you put that hole in the ball with the skewer, that goes down over the edge of the pipe. You don't want that sticking up over the edge. And then I'm just taking a paper towel here to clean up the excess silicone, so it gives it a nice clean edge. But this does dry clear, and I found that it didn't deter or anything if there was any left over. So now that we're building the base, this is a 12-inch wide board. It's 1 inch thick, and I'm cutting it to 12, so we're going to have a 12 by 12 square. And this is going to be the base for our project. I'm using a 1 board here. You could use plywood, you could use some MDF. It doesn't really matter. This was just some scrap wood I had laying around. You just need something that's got some weight to it to hold up the base. Always using proper ear and eye protection as well as a dust mask. I also have a 1x6 here, and I'm cutting it to 12 inches as well. So this will be centered over the top board, and we'll be cutting a hole into it to hold our base. So here I'm using a 2-inch hole saw hooked up to our drill press. I've got a spare piece of foam insulation board underneath of it, so I'm not cutting into our base there. But just take it really slow. I found it took quite a bit of work to get the hole saw through the 1-inch board. And just hold it steady there. So we've got our 6x12 piece with the hole cut in the center, and then our 12x12 piece. And like I said, either of these could be plywood. And then I have 2 self-tapping screws that are about 1 1/4 inch for softwood. I just lined those up in the center and screwed the top piece to the bottom using those 2. And this is just to give us a nice stable point to put our pipe in here. Okay, there you go, one finished base. And so just like this, you'll be able to take your PVC with a little bit of glue and put it into the bottom there. Okay, so here I have the finished sign that we cut a little bit ago, and I want to take a moment to talk about, I did add red tape around the edge. I found that it was just lacking something and needed a little bit extra, so I added red tape around the edge and then used my vinyl cutter to cut all the letters out for the signs. If you don't have a program or a vinyl cutter like this, you can also use paint pen or paint to add all of your letters to it, but I had the capability and I used the cool vinyl cutter. And it made easy work out of this. It made it so it was very consistent and I could just stick it on ahead of time. So there's the finished sign with the tape around the edge and then the vinyl already applied. So now we're going to take the sign and find the center point and go 1 inch down, and we're going to pre-drill a hole right there so we can put our screw in it. If you don't pre-drill, you're likely to have really bad tear out with your MDF, so make sure you pre-drill. So once you have the hole drilled, I'm taking the 1 1/4 inch screws and I'm gonna go ahead and start that screw into the board and just put it in enough so that the tip pokes out, and that's gonna help me align it onto the PVC. We're gonna set that aside and now do the PVC pipe. I'm measuring 8 inches down from where the pipe starts to where I want that screw to sit. So I measured 8 inches with just a pencil and then use the same drill bit that I used earlier to drill a pilot hole. Hold it really firmly here. You don't want it to roll away from you. So then take your sign and use that tip there to just set it inside the hole you just piloted. And that'll make it really easy to set up. Once you got it into the hole, hold it really firmly as much as possible, and then go ahead and screw it in. You could also add some glue to the back of the sign, and that would make it really rigid. I liked the fact that there was a little bit of wiggle in it, so while I was moving it, if I bumped it, I could fix it. So here's our base again. I've got some Gorilla Glue and some water. Cut the end off of a popsicle stick to use as a spreader. I was pretty generous with the Gorilla Glue on my piece, so I started off by adding water to just one side, which was the wood side for me, and then put Gorilla Glue on the end of my pipe here. You don't really need it down in the base of the hole. Really what you want is on that lower inch of the PVC pipe. Just go all the way around. We've got a little bit of working time here to spread it around and then get it into the hole. Once you've got it in, I found that it was easy to lean these against a table so that the base could go under the edge, but I needed a way to hold these vertical while they dried because they kept wanting to tip just slightly. So once you get these in, you want to make sure you lean it against something and use a level to make sure that they're absolutely straight.
So here's the North Pole in all its glory. I do want to take one moment before wrapping up here to talk about this lower sign. We had a special sponsor for the event that I used these at and needed a way to recognize them at the event. You know, everyone does poster boards on an easel against a wall, but we wanted something really dynamic that people could interact with and recognize our sponsor. So this sign is made in the exact same way the upper sign is, only it's 12 inches in width versus the 18. All the rest of the steps are the same, the painting, the tape, as well as the vinyl letters. There is an 8-inch difference between the upper and the lower screw if you want this exact measurement. But we just were looking for a really nice way to recognize our sponsor that people could interact with. If this is something that you want to take on, this is very easily a weekend project. Since I was making 6 of them, it took me a little bit longer, but you can definitely do it in a couple days with dry times of paint. Easy to do in a couple days. So if you like this project and want to see more, click the subscribe button below so you don't miss any extra videos of projects in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye!